You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
After a widow put her $1.5 million mansion on the market, a group of sovereign citizens moved in, changed the locks, and tried to claim it as their own, as they do. That's what we're talking about today. We have got this $1.5 million in Maryland. We've got this is an issue going on, and this keeps happening all over the United States, right? We had this issue here in the Woodway market, which is kind of Edmonds here and just across the border in from North King County, and like 40-minute drive from downtown Seattle, half an hour and no traffic. You get the idea. This has been going on all over the country. They try and take over real estate, and people get really worked up. And most of the time they don't succeed, but man, I give them props for just keeping on going, because they never successfully take anything over. They just create a lot of havoc, and their methodology is all it's just whacked, right? I mean, it makes no sense. It's like, oh, we're believing this. We got this going, conspiracy theory here. We're going to take over some real estate because of this ancient, whatever it is, mandate. Just some crazy stuff. Why are we talking about this on the Seattle Real Estate Podcast? It's a topic that people want to hear. That's the bottom line. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with real estate, what's going on in the real estate business, but it's a topic that's out there, and I'm going to cover it because somebody needs to. This is important stuff. You have these jokers show up at your door, don't let them in. This usually always happens on vacant homes too. All right. Before we dive on in, if you're new here, my name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies, and I read the news that hopefully you want to hear. All right, let's do this. A group of at least 5 self-proclaimed sovereign citizens moved into an empty Maryland mansion and tried to claim it as their own, the Baltimore Sun reported last Thursday. The group, which included a dentist, a convicted sex offender, they moved in, changed the locks, put a chain across the driveway with a private property sign. Well, most property is private, right? It's privately owned, private property. Could you imagine having the guts to do this? I mean, it's like you're trespassing, you're taking over somebody's house it's not your house. You are stealing on a big level, $1.5 million. You're just taking it over. You just go in there, just make yourself at home and say, this is mine based on this. You know, their sovereign citizens' beliefs, which are just a convoluted bunch of nonsense. We had the whole Red House on North Mississippi Avenue in Portland. They claimed some of the same stuff there, trying to keep a house, retain a house that had been foreclosed on a couple of years ago. For this story here today, I tried to figure out what was going on in the Red House in Portland, and I couldn't find any major updates. I saw that there was an enormous party sometime like the beginning of the year. 150 people showed up, a dozen 911 calls. Seems about the same, but it seems to me like there's a standoff there, and there's just not much going on with the Red House in North Mississippi. If some of you guys know what the actual deal is there, let me know. But back to Maryland here. The homeowner, who did not want to be named due to safety concerns, don't blame her, had moved out of the $1.5 million home in Baltimore County and listed it for sale after the death of her husband last year. When a neighbor noticed unusual activity, including people unloading furniture, she notified the homeowner. And in so many of these instances, you'll see people just moving a bunch of stuff in. And to me, I look at that and go, I would never have the guts to go do that. I mean, it just kind of goes to show you the mindset of these folks and the lengths at which they're willing to go. All right, we're going to bring some furniture in here too, because, we need to be comfortable while we're watching our Xbox stealing somebody else's house. I mean, that's legit, straight up. That is what they're doing, right? The homeowner then realized that she was being sued for property ownership. Police reports reviewed by the Sun said one of the people called the takeover a sovereign acquisition. Whew. Scary stuff. Sovereign citizens believe they should choose which laws they follow. Okay, this is where we start to go down that road that's a little bit, all right, where are we going with this here? They should choose the laws which they follow according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. The movement is based on a conspiracy theory that the U.S. government, as established by the Founding Fathers, was secretly replaced. Do you believe that? I do not. That does seem like a conspiracy theory to me. I'm interested in some conspiracy theories. I think they're entertaining. I think they're interesting. They make you think a little bit. But at the end of the day, most of the conspiracy theories that I see and hear about and think about, I kind of leave them as that, as conspiracy theories. One of the ones that I do enjoy researching and watching is the whole UFO deal, although it's not UFO anymore because that has been disbanded. That's no longer an appropriate term. It is unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP. Is that right? I think that is UAP, not UFO, UAP. Because, unidentified flying objects, that's got to be racist somehow. I mean, that's racist. No, I have no idea. Why did they change that? I mean, I'm sure I've read that or been told, but it's like, just let me work with the whole UFO thing. It's a UFO. It's an unidentified flying object. But then if you use UAP, you can bring a lot of other stuff in and talk about that. All right. They're objects that are moving way faster than the technology we have. Where are they coming from? What's the dealio? Let us know. All right, back to our regularly scheduled program with sovereign citizens in Maryland. They do not believe in the authority of judges, juries, law enforcement, or elected officials. And most do not believe they should have to pay taxes. Sovereign citizens clog up the courts with indecipherable filings and sometimes engage in paper terrorism that involves tons of court filings with pseudo-legal nonsense, according to the Southern Poverty Law, whatever it is. I did a deep dive on that Red House in Mississippi because that was following a long sequence of foreclosure events. The home had transferred several times. And a young, I think it was like Russian background investor bought it. And he was just getting hammered with, you've taken over these people's homes. You're kicking them to the curb. And the home had been foreclosed on several years prior, and they still occupied it. And they were basically, I read through all of the paper terrorism and the court filings, and it was beyond pseudo-legal nonsense. It was straight up nonsense. You just read some of the stuff, and the kid of the parents whose house it was, William Kinney, I believe it was, he did a video. It's one of these videos, and I look at a lot of YouTube channels. It's one of these YouTube channels where if you start to look at all their content, it's all based on fear and just basically stuff that isn't true, but it's great clickbait. Like the real estate market's going to crash in 2021. How many millions of views does that generate? Millions. The real estate market's going to crash. Okay, here's the thing. You can tune into the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I'm going to save you all that. Here's the deal. In 2021, real estate market isn't going to crash. There you go. Saved you a lot of that time, a lot of that effort of clicking through, which video should I watch? It's not going to crash. It's just not going to crash in 2021. Boom, done. Let's again get back to pseudo-legal nonsense. But I see a lot of real estate channels that go down those roads, and it's like, that doesn't really make sense. But the William Kinney, he put out a video that was straight up just, if you're in real estate and you tried to follow, it wasn't pseudo-legal. It was gibberish. He put up a video that was straight gibberish. And I think I did I do a live stream on that? I think I did, because that was a big topic at one time. It was, everybody was worked up that, people of color were being evicted from their home when in fact they'd been evicted a couple of years before that because they didn't make their payments. They had a contract. They didn't honor their contract. The judge allowed them to get back in the game and make payments. They chose not to because they went down this road of straight up nonsense. Doesn't make any sense. And you're like, you're going to court based on a ruling from 1774 that said something completely unrelated to your situation, but that's what you're going to do. And then they took over a courtroom, and then they were escorted out by, court security. It's just like, so pseudo-legal nonsense, paper terrorism, and they clog up the courts with indecipherable filings. It's so true. I looked at all the filings that they did on the Red House in North Portland. It was strong work. The volume of their effort. I give them an A-. They probably could have done more, and that's the only reason. I give them effort for volume of just crap thrown at the court system. And the kid, William Kinney, he claimed that he had studied enough law that he should have a law degree, that he'd studied enough where he had gone to law school. And yet he was still coming up with his stuff and with his buddy sitting on a bench out in front of the courthouse. And they're just spouting absolute nonsense. It just made no sense. And if you're a real estate guy and you're watching it, you're like, I got to turn this off. This is just hurting my brain. It's so bad. But that's what they do. So let's keep going. Police had tried multiple times to get the squatters. All right, squatters. Straight up, you guys are squatters, to leave the home, including a helicopter and armored vehicles, the Sun reported. They were able to get a search warrant after pulling over Michael Lawrence Warren, one of the squatters, for a traffic stop, and discovered his identity and criminal history, which included sex offenses. Are you shocked? Are you shocked? I am not shocked. No, but one thing does shock me here. And I'll mention it when we get there. Court records show Warren was arrested and charged with multiple counts of burglary and illegal possession of a firearm. Another person implicated in the incident is Tessa Mona Modiri. All right. Now this is where it gets interesting. Court records show she has also been arrested and charged with multiple counts of burglary. The Baltimore Sun said Modiri had filed a complaint with the county claiming the home belonged to her because she entered it through a broken door, arguing it was abandoned. A person with the name Tessa M. Modiri is listed as having an active dentist license in the state of Maryland's database. What are the odds Tessa M. Modiri? That's a fairly unique name, right? I've never run across, I don't know if I know anybody named Tessa. Is that short for something? Not sure. But Modiri, all right, that's pretty unique. She's got a dentist license. All right, so we got a sex offender and a dentist license hanging out in a house, and she filed a complaint with the county claiming the home belonged to her because she entered it through a broken door, arguing it was abandoned. All right, here's the thing. Even if nobody's living there, it doesn't mean it's abandoned. That's a thing. You can have a vacant home. It's your home. It's yours to do what you like. The fact that nobody's occupying it doesn't mean somebody else can take it over through a broken door that she probably broke, right? I mean, that's just what you do. There are 3 others facing burglary charges in the incident, but they have not yet been arrested. We need to arrest these people, right? The Baltimore County Police Department did not immediately respond to a request from Insider for more information on the charges and arrests. But we know it's a coming, right? I wonder what these folks are intending on getting out of this. Is this approach ever going to work? And I always get a lot of comments. I get a ton of comments on these videos, and a lot of them are from folks that don't really understand real estate. And you've got a thing called title insurance. If you've got financing in the property, you're going to be required to have title insurance. And you know what? You're not really at risk of losing your home. What your risk of losing is the possession of your home temporarily. And I've seen stories, and I've seen people just literally go in there on their own and throw people out on the curb. That's what has happened. Because a lot of police departments, they can't do anything. You know what they'll say? if they haven't been defunded, if they're not short on numbers, like so many of our police departments here in the Pacific Northwest are, most notably Seattle and Portland, and if you'll notice how the shooting incidences in those cities are going, it's not good. It's not a good thing. So the police in these cities, they basically tell people, all right, we're not real estate attorneys. We don't know what the deal is with the possession of this home. You guys are going to have to work this out in the courts. And so people are literally taking it upon themselves to throw others out of homes. I've had my real estate brokers contact me. Hey, Sean, we've got squatters in the backyard. What do we do? The cops say they're not going to do anything. And I'm like, you can either work through the legal process or you can do things I wouldn't recommend that are probably going to work faster and more effective, but not necessarily through the legal channels, if you know what I mean. And I can't recommend that. As their managing broker, I can't recommend that. But because it endangers people, you're putting people in a known confrontational type environment. But the flip side is the cops don't come and just throw people out anymore. Everybody's so worked up about lawsuits and there's so much liability. And there's so many of these kind of cases. And they have to be worked out in the court system until they're not. Know what I mean? So that's we've got some vigilante justice by normal citizens who are taking back their own land because they don't believe in these ridiculous conspiracy theories. They believe in making mortgage payments and taking title to real estate the legal way. Shocking, I know. Last month, a self-proclaimed sovereign citizen was arrested after entering a woman's vacant home in New Jersey and changing the locks. This is going on fairly often. Another group affiliated with the sovereign citizen movement got into a heavily armed standoff with police on a Massachusetts freeway earlier this month. Do you guys remember that one? When you start to do the deep dive into where these groups come from, you're kind of like, all right, all these nut jobs, they're all kind of from the same lineage, aren't they? It's like, yeah. Police said the 11-man arrested referred to themselves as a militia that followed a Moorish sovereign ideology, which is an offshoot of the sovereign citizen movement, experts told the Boston Globe. Those guys, so they're out. It's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Can't remember exactly. They are fueling up their vehicles on the side of the road. They brought gas with them. I mean, how about a gas station, guys? And when you've got like 11 of these guys standing around in the middle of the morning and they had guns, they had rifles with them. And the cops stopped and they said, we don't have to provide ID. We're not telling you who we are. No, we don't have any permits for the guns. No, we don't really have anything here to support. We're going to what were they going to? They're going to some practice, I think. Just practice. I can't remember. Was it some kind of military exercises they were going to? I think it was. Again, those guys are probably more legit than the sovereign citizens that take over people's homes. And why do I say that? I don't know. It seems like they had some purpose. The folks taking over people's homes and just basically bashing in a window and changing the locks, they're just taking advantage of people who have left their homes for a quick minute. I'm surprised more of that hasn't happened in like communities where there's been a lot of foreign investment and homes are vacant. We've got numerous communities here in the Seattle area where money has been parked from China and other countries where the political scene is less stable than here and people want to get their money out. And so they take their money out of their country and, invest in some real estate here. At one point in time, what was it, 2017, 2018, we had some massive amounts of foreign investment coming into the Seattle market and still do. Vancouver, BC has seen that as well, to the point where their government basically said, if you got a vacant house, we're going to tax you. I can't remember if it was like 10 grand a year if you wanted to keep a house vacant because there's such a shortage of housing. But when it's your home, you can do whatever you want. And if a government wants to tax you 10 grand and you still want to keep your house vacant, that's kind of your call. And the folks taking money out of whatever country it is that have a lot, 10 grand, it's like, all right, it's a holding fee to keep my house. But other people, like this gal whose husband died, she probably didn't need the big house anymore, didn't want to have to do the maintenance, that whole thing, doing some downsizing, whatever you want to call it. She shouldn't have to worry about these knuckleheads taking over her house and then how you get them out. I mean, the whole thing is truly mind-boggling. And 20 years ago, how do you think this would have been handled? It wouldn't have been peaceful. It wouldn't have been peaceful. 20 years ago, there would have been some beatdowns, right? I mean, don't you think? A lot of this stuff that I see, I'm like, people just wouldn't have tolerated this nonsense 20 years ago. 30 years ago, it would have been a no-go. I mean, people just wouldn't have tried this kind of crap in any real estate market. And now we're so respectful of everybody that we don't do anything when we've got just this silliness going on. I mean, let's go back to some of what they think. They believe which laws they should choose to follow. Okay. Do we follow eminent domain? That's a popular one in real estate. Do we follow adverse possession? It sounds like that's what they're kind of shooting for, right? Well, this home was empty. It's abandoned. So we changed the locks out, had some furniture delivered. Sure is a nice spot we got here. What do they expect is the end result from stealing, hijacking a $1.5 million home? That to me is it's the end game of where are you going to get with this? And like I said, with previous videos, I've had just a lot of misinformation about the end result of these guys taking over homes. Now, does it ever end in a successful takeover? No, I haven't been able to find a single case where a court has said, oh yeah, well, you know what? You're right. And I side with you that you should be able to follow whichever law you choose. Unfortunately, you're in my courtroom, and this is the United States law that we're dealing with right now, not the Moorish sovereign law of 17 whatever. And the fact that it's a movement based on a conspiracy theory that the U.S. government was, as established by the Founding Fathers, was secretly replaced. Maybe you believe that. All right, you have every right to. You can believe whatever you want. And then the flip side goes to me as well. I get to believe whatever I want. But the secretly replaced government, that is a tough sell at best. Who replaced it? What are they doing? How does that fit into this story? So many questions, so few answers. But what I do know is that all these cases, sometimes the sovereign citizens, they will tie a house up for months, if not years, enormous pain in the rear. And like the Red House down in Portland, because it became a war cry for the quote unquote housing activists, otherwise known as our fine friends who dress all in black, they got behind that one. They're like, oh, don't evict a family of color. It's like, you guys were evicted 2 years ago because you never made any payments. And a judge gave you the opportunity to start making payments on said home, but you didn't want to. Instead, you're running around doing these knuckleheaded court filings that go nowhere. I think I want to say they did either 57 or 62, some incredible number of court filings that were basically all just, I read through them. I mean, and it's laughable. It's not even laughable. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's people spinning the wheels of the justice system. That's what it is. But if you've got title insurance, you don't really need to worry about this stuff. But again, possession, 9/10 of the law, right? So if somebody's got hold of your house, you're going to be in for some trouble, especially if you're in a market like Seattle or Portland, where the police are basically like, hey, yeah, we know we're not wanted. You're going to need to work that one out by yourself. And that's a scary scenario for me, because I've got real estate brokers who've had people, hey, is it okay if I squat in the backyard in my trailer? You'll have sellers, you'll have family members say, oh yeah, go ahead. That's okay. New buyer takes over. It can be tricky to get those folks out. Hey, yeah, we know you were given a hall pass for a while, but we've got a new owner here. You need to go. We don't want to go. All right. And that is the point at which you need to figure out what direction you're going to go, possibly take some legal action. And then you've got this whole federal eviction moratorium that is up. Thank heavens. Here in a few days, I'm recording this for you on July 26th. That ends on July 31st. August 1st, the evictions can start to move forward. What's going to happen there? Yeah, here's the thing. You've always got evictions going on. You've always got evictions going on. There's always a certain percentage of people, for whatever reason in their life, their circumstances, maybe they've given up drugs, alcohol, lost a job, death in the family, who knows, divorce. I mean, any one of those life-changing events can impact people to the point where they're like, you know what? I'm not going to pay my rent. And I'm just going to wait this out and see what happens. There's always a percentage of that going on. And now you're going to see the media just put a spotlight on that and go, you see, we should have kept these eviction moratoriums in place. This poor family is being evicted. All right, but they would have been anyway. It's just that they bought themselves a year and change if they decided to stop making, payments back at the beginning of the pandemic. So what you've got now is you've got scenarios where people are realizing, hey, I've got rights. I've got possession of this property. I'm not going anywhere because the CDC said, don't move people. Don't evict people because they'll be forced to go into these high density housing shelters, and we don't want to spread the Rona, which I get, but this has gone on for far too long. The economies are going back, but here's what this is my theory. And I mean, it's not a theory. It's kind of just where we're at. We're waiting for that federal money to hit the markets, and it's taking a long time because they can't figure out how to get it into local markets. I think 6% of the Fed money has made it into markets. And by markets, I mean individual cities and states where they can actually reimburse said landlords. That's where we need to be. All right. That's it for me. I will have more of these topics because this stuff is happening. I try and pick the more interesting ones, but this was a good one. It had some good pieces to it, right? Thanks again for being here. Thanks for being part of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Love to have you subscribe, do all that stuff. I will see you on the next one. We're releasing 2 a day, Monday through Friday, 1 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. So hit that notification bell so you get notified when we come out with new content. Thanks again for being here. I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.